Looking to sound like you know what's going on in the world? Pop culture, social strategy, comedy, and other funny stuff? Well, join the club and settle in for the Jeff Dwoskin Show. It's not the podcast we deserve, but the podcast we all need, with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 67 of Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show. As always, I am, you guessed it, your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for another incredible week. And this week is the most incrediblest. Yes, that's right. We've got such a fun guest for you today. Scott Valentine is with us, ladies and gentlemen. Wait a minute, Jeff. Scott Valentine? You mean Nick from Family Ties, Mallory's boyfriend? Yes, that's Scott Valentine. And does Scott have a story to share with us? Scott Valentine, before his big break as Nick, was in a horrible car accident. He was literally dead and brought back to life. He shares this incredible story with us of coming back, persevering, never giving up, and finding success. You're going to love it, and that's coming up in just a few minutes. Speaking of amazing journeys, I hope you didn't miss episode 66 with Keith Famey, celebrity chef, Survivor contestant from Survivor Outback, season 2 of Survivor, and now amazing documentary filmmaker. We talked about a lot of amazing stories he's putting to film, stories of amazing people that he's sharing with everyone. Definitely check out that episode and then check out the great work Keith is doing. You're going to love it. Speaking of loving stuff, head over to my YouTube channel. Search The Jeff Dwoskin Show on YouTube. Give us a follow. Check out Crossing the Streams. We have all the backlog there. And you're also invited to join us live every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk about amazing shows you should be streaming. Me and a bunch of friends. It's an amazing treasure trove of information of things that you should be binging and streaming on all the different streaming platforms. So check that out. And when you're done checking that out, and by all means, take your time when checking that out. I don't want to rush you. Head on over to jeffisfunny.com or jeffdwoskinshow.com. We're on the World Wide Web. That's right. We're all over the world on this incredible tool called the Internet. You can find us anywhere in the world at jeffisfunny.com. Did I make that sound fancy or what? I think I did. I was pretty excited. It's all about tone and confidence. Okay, anyway, so head over to my website, and from my website, you can do so many cool and exciting and fun things you just get ready. Hold on to your socks. 1, sign up for my mailing list. 2, buy me a coffee. That's right, I love coffee. You know it. I love it even more when someone else buys it for me. 3, click on Follow the Jeff Dwoskin Show and follow me on one or multiple podcast apps. It's totally free. Doesn't cost any more for you to follow me on Spotify and Amazon and CastBox as it is if you just picked one. So following all of them in case any of those fail, then you have a lot of backups. 4, you can listen to any episode of Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show on my website. All the episodes are there. Each episode has its own glorious webpage on the World Wide Web. And I think that's it. But that's a lot. That's a lot for you to do. And now it's time for the social media tip. All right, this is one of my favorite parts of the show where I get to share a little bit of my social media knowledge with you so that we can all be masters of the social medias. Today's a pretty straightforward tip. The tip is when structuring content for your social media, when you're trying to get people interested in what you're talking about, make sure it's engageable. What do I mean by that? Make it something that people are going to want to respond to or reply to or share. That's way more important than likes. Likes are kind of an easy way for people to just kind of say, yeah, it's not so bad. But if you can really get people to stop and engage, comment, and share, then you know you're doing something special. On Instagram, ask a question. Get people talking underneath the post. On Twitter, get something that people can share but also respond to. Get a conversation going. When you get a good conversation going, then you know you're on to something special. And those are the real people that are really engaged and interested in what you have to say and what you're doing. That's it. Easy peasy, right? And that's a social media tip. I do want to take a quick second to thank all of my beautiful listeners for supporting the sponsors week after week. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting the show. And that's how we keep the lights on here at Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show. This week's sponsor is the East Village Book of the Month Club. Act now and get 50% off such classics as Land of the Carnosaurus, Nick's Guide to Winning Over Your Parents, The Ties That Bind, Marrying Your Demon Lover, How to Handle Black Scorpions, All Must-Haves, and all yours for 50% off. Just use the code MOREBOOKS to get your discount. All right. Well, I love books. I could go on and on about books all day. Bookstores are a great place. But I think it's time I shared the conversation I had with Scott Valentine with you. It's like my Valentine to you, my fans. Except it's a interview and not flowers and candy. It's Scott Valentine, not... Anyway, sorry. That sounded a lot better in my head as I was working it out. And then as it came out, I realized I'm just going to get right to the interview. Scott Valentine's journey is incredible. I can't wait for you to hear all about it. Enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to introduce you to my next guest. I'm very excited to have here actor Scott Valentine. You know him as Mallory's boyfriend from Family Ties. He's so amazing. And we're here and we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. So, hey, Scott, how are you doing? Thanks for coming to the
Mr.
show.
Dwoskin, thank you kindly for having me.
I am so happy to have you. Thank you. So, Scott, before we get into some of the iconic stuff you did, how did you get into acting in the first place? What got you the bug?
I was, through college or high school, I worked for the Gannett News Organization, was the sports editor for the local newspaper or assistant sports editor. There was a job in Guam to be the sports editor for the Guam Journal, little newspaper that served the military base over there. And they asked me if I wanted to go. And I was like, yeah, sure. I don't want to go to college. I'll go to Guam and have sex with Guamian babes. Beautiful. And then there was an attempted coup d'etat about a month before I graduated high school. And I thought, well, screw this. I'm not going to Guam. Went to the local community college, had no idea what the hell I was doing. The first semester, I had about a 1.8 GPA. Second semester, I had a 1.3 GPA. Was totally lost. Auditioned for a play, got a part, liked it. And then I realized the same research I was doing for the play, I could actually write that up and use it as a thesis for one of my whatever lit classes or history classes or something. Just retitle it. Kind of liked it. And then auditioned again, got another part and liked it more. Not only was I getting better grades, I was getting more dates. And I thought, what could make this better? Money. I auditioned to try to attend the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, ACT, the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, and Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. Got accepted at all of them and chose the Academy because it was, a hop, skip, and a jump from where I grew up. The rest is history.
There's more to the histoy, I think. So
that's it. We didn't do anything else. Nothing
else.
That's
it. All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been great talking.
Have a good night. Good night, Detroit.
That has been Scott Valentine. It was enjoyed that retrospect. So it's interesting when you do interviews because you start to, certain things and then you start to learn certain things as you kind of dive in. As you were starting to become Scott Valentine actor or you're getting some movie auditions and a soap opera, you got into a horrible accident and that kind of sidetracked you for a while.
Yeah, I went to the Academy, graduated, was just loved going to the Academy. Got out of the Academy, started working at the Actors Studio. I don't know if you know the famous Actors Studio, was in class with guys like Al Pacino, being taught by Elia Kazan, was loving life as not an actor. I was a thespian. I was a tragedian, Jeffrey. Started auditioning, was doing a lot of plays, and then got offered a role in Lords of Discipline, feature film for Paramount. Got offered a part on one of the soap operas. I can't remember which one with the name World in it. And my agent was like, you got to take the soap. I was like, I want to do the movie. He said, come to the office. Let's talk about it. So I was riding my bike north on 8th Avenue in Manhattan. Got to the corner of 8th and 42nd, stopped at the red light. Truck driver in the truck to the right of me, he and I got into a verbal altercation because when a young woman was crossing in front of the truck going from the east side of 8th Avenue to the west side of 8th Avenue, he popped the clutch to make a jerk forward, of which he then scared the little girl in her left hand. There was a baby in the stroller, and they started laughing like, wow, isn't this fun? And I turned and gave him my best F you look. And he turned and said, what's your effing problem. And I said, what's my effing problem? What's your problem? And he's like, fuck you. And I said, fuck you. I said, yeah, you're a big man. You're going to run over a woman and her kid. And at that time, the woman had crossed the street. And he's like, fuck you. I said, you know what? You're an effing idiot. And he said, fuck you. Went to open his door to get out. And the light turned green. So I took off on my bike. And between 42nd and 43rd, he rammed me from behind, flipped me up in the air. Front tire ran over me. Then I got trapped into the back tires and pushed for a block and a half up to 44th Street. And a guy who had heard me screaming was a nickel and dime drug dealer, heard me screaming and ran and jumped on the running board and started punching the driver to get him to stop. The driver stopped. Partly he stopped because he couldn't get over me. I could tell he had put the clutch in again, tried to downshift to get more torque to get over me and couldn't. Thank God, because I had wondered if he did get over me, I would be there in the middle of 8th Avenue and more cars would have run over. And then the guy who got him to stop came back, said, talking in a very thick Puerto Rican accent, what do you want, man? What do you want? And I was like, can you get him back the truck, back it off of me? And which he did. And the guy came back and he's like, what do you want, man? What do you want? And I'm like, just let me hold your hand. Let me hold your hand. And then I said, can you get him to turn the truck off? Because for some reason I assumed I was bleeding somewhere in my right upper thigh and my buttocks, my gluteus maximus, and the lower part of my back, all the skin had been dragged off. And for some reason I thought the exhaust from the truck was going to give me cancer. The weirdest things go through your head, Then I heard sirens, and when the sirens got closer, the guy who had saved my life said to me that he had to get out of there because him and the cops didn't get along so well, and he took off. And the next thing I know, there was a cop holding my hand, coming again. I was like, let me hold your hand, let me hold your hand. And sometimes when you're in such pain, like you knock your knee on the edge of the table or something, and you go like, ah. And I went to bite, almost bit his hand. He's like, don't bite my hand. It was funny when the ambulance came. I always wanted to ride in the ambulance. I always wanted to be in an ambulance and have the sirens and lights going so it would make this sea of cars part in Manhattan. It wasn't fun. It hurt. Was taken to St. Clair's Hospital, 52nd Street between 9th and 10th. It's no longer there. Died in the emergency room. Died. They brought me back. This leg, my left leg, was up in the middle of my back. My pelvis was in 32 pieces. And my left hip and left femur were smashed. I was in ICU for 2 weeks, I think 18 days total, in the hospital for about 3 months. Got out, went back to my parents' house up in Saratoga Springs, New York to convalesce. And after being there, I love my parents. My dad's dead now. My mom's still alive. She's a sweetheart at 87, all 4 foot 6 inches of her. And it's funny, she's this little, and she used to put the fear of God in all of us. She used to beat the shit out of all of us. After being there in September, I think January, February, I'd had enough. I was doing therapy every day, going to the local Y and having aquatic therapy. But in my mind, I had to get back to New York. I had to get back because the movie Lords of Discipline had been delayed. And I'd communicated with Frank Rodham, and I'm like, I'm coming back, man. I'm going to do it. I never got back. It took me 2 years to eventually have an artificial femur and hip and a little bit of my pelvis put in so I could actually walk normal without looking. I had a terrible gait. I had to throw my leg until then to be able to walk. But after 2 months of being with my parents, it was just, the old adage, you can't go home. Well, love my mom and dad, but I just couldn't take being in the house with them. So moved back to New York, started auditioning again, and went to therapy, went to rehab. Eventually, when I got my new parts put in, 2 years later, I started auditioning, which was funny in the interim. I never told anybody this sort of in an interview. I did do a play in the interim there with my bad leg when I was getting around with crutches. And the casting director on that play was George Ann Walken, Chris Walken's wife. She used to pick me up at my apartment every day in Upper West Side and drive me down to the theater on 27th Street. It was just a little funny story. And when I was doing aquatic therapy, I was trying to find a pool where I could swim where nobody would hit me, and find a pool also where it wasn't the general swim. I don't know if you've ever gone to a Y like that, especially in New York, and there's only certain hours that you can go in and do laps. And you got all these losers that think they were the next Michael Phelps and just wanted to go over you. Dude, I know the Olympics is waiting for you to give you your medal. Just go around me. And went to the manager of the Y, and I said, I told him what had happened, how my leg and my hip, my pelvis were very involved, as they say. And I said, can I please, just, there's a time with the pool where nobody's in there. I've seen it. Can I just go in? And eventually he caved and he said, you can go in there, but there's one other guy. There's one other guy. You go in the pool, you don't look at him, you don't talk to him, you don't mess with him. You just go in, you do your laps, you get out, you leave him alone. But that one other guy was Chris Walken. And I didn't know it. I'd been going there for about, I don't know, maybe a month. Have you ever done laps in the pool for exercise?
In school, it was horrible.
So you're not looking left or right. You're not concerned with who else is in the pool. You come up the end of the pool, you do your flip, you go back the other way, blah, blah. And every time I would pull up to rest, I would make certain the guy would either be, over here or over there. And I made sure, don't look. And so one day I pulled up, I'm standing there, because I had to get in and out. I was still using crutches. Hey, what happened to your leg? I can't do a Chris Walken.
Hey, what happened? I can't either.
And this guy's asking me, like, what happened to your leg? What's going on? Why do you got the crutches? Why do you always, you've done the crutches for a long time? It was Chris Walken. He was very cool. Okay. It was very sweet. And it was like a little, just a teeny tiny touch of like being in the presence of a great actor. I think he's a phenomenal talent. It was very funny that he's in the pool doing laps. And I couldn't even say, your wife comes and picks me up and takes me to rehearsals, which was funny. I was so awestruck.
Did they ever make that connection?
Never with either one. Never. I was 24 about, I was still I was rather daunted by, he had done, what was that movie with Bobby De Niro?
Deer Hunter?
Actor studio. I mean, this guy, he was like, he was a god in front of me.
So you got out of the pool. What was the next steps to getting back into acting?
Went for an audition on a film with Paul Newman and Robbie Benson to play Robbie Benson's buddy. And, go the initial, meet the assistant casting director, and then the assistant again, then the casting director and the assistant, then go meet one of the producers. And after about 8 auditions doing the same material, it was like, okay, now you're meeting the director and the producer, and it's you and one other guy. Went in, got done, did the scene, 2 scenes, and the director and the producer seemed genuinely interested. You never know, because you go to so many auditions, and they'll say, well, Jeff, that was lovely. Thank you so much. What's really special? And you never hear shit again. It's like, what the fuck? I was so special. You don't want to call me? At the end of the audition, the director and the producer seemed what I thought was genuinely interested. And the casting director, who had seen me at least 6 times, said, didn't something happen to you? Weren't you in an accident? And I thought, oh, no. Don't you have fake parts? Yeah, isn't there something with your hip? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a hip guy. I'm cool. No, you had an accident. Well, we all have accidents. Like this morning, I walked into the coffee table. I hit my foot. No, you had an accident. You were hurt. She's like, you got fake parts in you, don't you? You're like a tinker toy. We can't hire him. He's like a tinker toy. He's going to fall apart on the set. So it was at that moment where I realized I've got to leave New York. I got to go to LA. Didn't want to go to LA. I wanted to be a trained actor. I wanted to do plays 10 months out of 12 and the other 2 months do a film so I could be paid enough money to pay my rent the rest of the year and do plays. But New York and the acting community is a pretty small little pool and everybody knows what everybody's doing. LA was a new venture, a new place. So I finally said, screw it. Got to go to LA where nobody knows about this. And I was lucky enough, the guy who was my agent decided to open an office in LA, went out pretty much right after he opened the office. He was a great guy. Michael Schlesinger stuck by me like blood. He sent me out. Sometimes I'd be 20 auditions in a week, again and again and again and again. And after 10 months, I got Family Ties, just kept auditioning and auditioning. And his disposition, and I'll say for any aspiring actor out there, you just got to keep stepping up to the plate. You got to keep trying because eventually you will get your shot. Eventually, either you'll be good enough or you'll fool somebody where they'll let you in front of the camera and you'll get your turn. And I knew I just needed to get bankable to go where I could then have value and nobody would ask me about the accident.
It's horrible that they did that to you in New York, though. I guess everything happens for a reason. The universe sends signs and that sent you to LA. I do have one question. When it comes to the accident, did you come out of that with different philosophies? I mean, obviously, to get through something like that, where they pretty much thought maybe you wouldn't walk again or anything like that, is a tremendous amount of willpower and dedication and focus. What did you kind of take away from that? And sort of probably, I'm guessing to this day, did you gain any new mantras from all that?
Yes, very much so. I was a pretty positive person before being run over. I think my cheery, rosy disposition helped me get through being in traction for, 52 days and then being told you'll never walk. You're going to be paralyzed for the rest of your life. So we grew up in a house where you never gave up. But after being run over and going through that, it helped me many a times of going, just never give up. Believe in yourself. Eventually, keep trying. Don't keep trying the same way. You don't want to define insanity. Keep trying. Don't give up. And as I have said to my sons, I've got 4 beautiful sons. That was another thing I was told I could never have children. And I've said to other folks, just don't give up. So it truly gives you the mantra of don't give up. Believe in yourself. And the other mantra, many a times I've been in some sticky situations where it's like, well, this is not as bad as being run over by a truck. Could be worse. Getting a ticket from the police or going through my divorce, that was fun. It gives you the ability to go, nothing is worse than, and this will pass. Everything passes. People need to know that. People think when they get into situations that, when people say, oh, I'm fine. Don't use that. Don't use that. Then you will be, and you are, and you're reiterating that, and you're sending that into the universe. Just know everything is momentarily. Even those moments of bliss, those moments of pure joy, they're only for a few moments. So love them, drink them in, swim in them, and know, life ebbs and flows. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. Have faith, be patient, just keep digging, keep fighting, keep on keeping on.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott Valentine.
Thank you, Jeff Dwoskin.
Okay, so now you're Family Ties, and you were on seasons
4, 5, 6, 7.
You're Mallory's boyfriend. You've gone to the fancy acting academy, and now you're playing Nick, a monosyllabic, Stallone-ish type character.
I went from doing Shakespeare and Congreve and Wycherley to grunting and getting paid a lot of money to grunt. So, yeah.
And killer hair. Let's not gloss the hair there.
Hair's still there. It's a little bit grayer and a lot shorter. So
no, you still got a good head of hair. It's good. It's of the times now too, as Nick's was of those times. Let's spill some tea. What was it like working on Family Ties? Family Ties was part of one of the greatest NBC lineups, I think, ever. And it was one of those shows that I think everyone watched. Michael J. Fox got his start on that. Justine Bateman, who played Mallory, your girlfriend. Her brother still acts and is extremely well known now, Jason Bateman. Seen the others, and Michael Gross and Meredith Baxter. It was such an amazing group. And like the dynamics of that show were just so great. You came in. How did they welcome you? Because there are 3 seasons in. You come in season 4. How was that coming into like such an established working family like that?
I knew of Michael Fox. I did not own a television at the time. You remember, I was a thespian, a tragedian. We don't watch TV. When I auditioned for the show, I didn't really know it. I think I knew of it, but hadn't watched it. It wasn't, at 20, what was I when I got on the show? 27. I was 27. Wow. But still being like, a theater rat. When I got on the show, first episode I taped, I think was in August. Back to the Future had come out in July. Teen Wolf came out in August. So you're walking onto a set with a guy that has the number 1 and number 2 movie in the country. It was pretty cool. I remember going to the sound stage, walking to the support stage, and then going through the support stage and asking people like, where do I go? I'm here for the table read. And people like, oh yeah, walk through that door over there. Yeah, you go over there. And nobody knew that I was this week's guest character. And walking through the huge fire door that separated the stage from the support stage. And there was a table. There were people laughing and joking and walking, getting settled in with their cup of coffee and their scone or their Danish or whatever. And folks sitting down. I walked up and introduced myself. The guy who eventually became a friend, Rick Allen. And it's like, oh yeah, you sit over here. And there was, Gary Goldberg, Alan Huger, Michael Whitehorn, some other writer-producers. There was that Fox guy. There was that Meredith Baxter woman that had been on TV for years. Justine, Tina, Michael Fox, Michael Gross. And then when I was introduced, this week's guest character being played by Scott Valentine, everybody was so warm and so gracious. Now, coming from New York and doing theater, that's the way everybody, doing theater in New York, everybody hugged. Everybody loved each other. We're here to put on a show. Let's work together. Let's do our best. So I thought that was just the natural way that the rest of the business was. Before Gary Goldberg died, he was the executive producer, the showrunner of Family Ties, the gentleman who created the show. I would say to him, you set me up, because I thought every Hollywood experience was going to be as loving and as kind and as nurturing as Family Ties. And obviously it's not. On that show, it was really like family. They treated not just me, but everybody that came through the door. And whether it was Tom Hanks doing a guest starring role, folks that weren't so big at the time but went on to such great things, Michael Gross, Michael Fox, Meredith Baxter Birney, Justine Bateman, Tina Yothers, Mark Price. Everybody was always very gracious and very embracing. Wonderful, wonderful environment. I loved it because it was very theater-esque. To do the table read was something that was germane to my existence. To do the rehearsals in a sort of a proscenium setting was very germane to what I had done. And then when we taped, that was a little bit, I had never done a 4-camera show before, because taping a show like that is very loose compared to doing film. Film, they start with a very wide lens, an 18, then a 25, and then a 50, and then a 85, and then 100, and it gets tighter and tighter. In film, you're like in your own little petri dish or this little microcosm. It was great on a sitcom 4-camera proscenium set because it was like doing theater, which I loved and still love. Everybody was so cool. I was not a comedic actor. I didn't know comedy. And to have somebody like Michael Fox there to help you and coach you, walk you through sort of the rhythm of comedy, pretty cool. I was very lucky. I'm still very appreciative and never wanted to have a capricious disposition and say, well, I deserve this,
Well, you worked hard. I mean, you came back from the dead to get it. So I'd say you earned it.
There's a lot of folks running around and they think, well, don't I deserve? Well, can't I have? Nobody owes anybody anything. They don't. You owe your children to raise them and love them and try to teach them to be the best humans you can. You owe your significant other, your wife, your husband, whomever it is, your partner. You owe them to be respectful and to be a whole individual. But beyond that, nobody owes anybody anything. They don't. There's that expression, Jeff, that a fish stinks from the head. It either smells really good or it smells really bad. And Gary Goldberg was the head, and this fish smelled as sweet as a bouquet of roses. It was a wonderful, 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 supportive, loving environment.
So how did you go from one guest spot to hanging around for the rest of the seasons?
Got lucky. Got lucky. Kept my mouth shut and remembered my lines and hit my mark. No, it was the first episode. I think when it was written initially, it was sort of Stephen and Lise going, boy, we dodged that bullet. Good thing Mallory came to her senses. The day that we were taping, where they did hair and makeup, the principal cast, their dressing rooms were under the raised rake stage where the audience sat. And in that same sort of like tunnel-like environment was the hair and makeup room for the principals. For the guest starring folks, you were in the hallway and all this hubbub going on and blah, 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 blah. I remember sitting in the makeup chair and Gary Goldberg walking up and putting his arm on me like, you okay? You good? You ready to go? I'm like, yeah. He's like, listen, wanted to ask you something. And I thought, okay, how do you change the spark plugs in your 351 Cleveland? And he said, we kind of like having you around here. You're having some fun with you. What would you think about coming back again? Maybe doing another one or two or whatever of these. And I was like, yeah, sure, cool, okay. Jeff, I had no idea the power of television. I had no idea that it would lead to what it led to. I was going, it was like, here's your gig. You're in and out 1 week, do a good job, shut up, and just be a gentleman. Tape the show. They had contacted my agent the next week and said, we'd like to have him back. And my agent was thrilled. I was thrilled, but I didn't realize until the first episode aired, I think about a month after we taped it. I remember that Thursday night lineup went from Cosby to Family Ties to Cheers to Wings to St. Elsewhere. Killer lineup for NBC. They trounced everybody at that time. And that was Brandon Tartikoff picking what shows and his genius. Him nurturing the showrunners and the showrunners nurturing their cast. Because if you look at those shows, if you look at Cheers, Cosby, Family Ties, Wings, I believe from what I've been told, secondhand from folks that worked on the shows, there was that nurturing, loving environment as well. Before we knew that Bill Cosby was a kind of creepy, predatory, sexual guy, he was very loving of his cast and his members, and he was one of the producers, one of the owners, and he made sure everybody was taken care of. That's sort of the odd juxtaposition of his existence. But that existed also in Cheers, and it existed on Wings. The first episode aired, I think it was 3 weeks, a month later, and literally the next day, I remember going to a audio store, for car audio and stereos in your house, and just being kind of not mobbed, but just like, wow. And in the parking lot. And then when I walked out of the store to go back to the parking lot, just, I don't want to say assaulted, but just people were like, hey, wow, I saw you on TV. Yeah. It snowballed to the effect of where it got a little crazy, a little bit much, a little bit, I think every actor, every musician, every star athlete that makes mega million contracts, guys like LeBron James, I think he knows that his money comes from his audience, his fans. I'm not so sure Michael Jordan bought into that as well, or maybe Kobe Bryant. I don't know, other guys that were other greats in that league. As a talent in the living arts, and part of that is being filmed and giving that to the public, you got to know that's part of your gig. That's part of that you need to deal with that in public. Did it get uncomfortable times? Sure. Was it inconvenient at times? Yeah, but I think I always tried to be gracious and be appreciative. This one time, my ex-wife and I, we were traveling, and my two sons were, I think, about 3 and 1, and we were changing flights in Chicago. You know how big that airport is. And we were literally going from one terminal to the other, and the flight from LA to Chicago was delayed. And then to be able to catch our flight was like a sprint, with strollers and baby diaper bags and carry-on luggage and a breast pump and all that. And I think one of the gate agent from the initial flight was kind enough to call to the gate agent on the connecting flight and say these other passengers are coming, and it probably helped being on a hit TV show at the time. But as we're going, we're more and more having more and more fans that are stopping and, hey, can I have your autograph? And hey, I was like, oh, yeah, I got to catch a flight. And as we got to the gate, I was holding my second son, Shaler, who was about a year, maybe 9 months, and he decided to pass his bowels at that moment. And it was rather robust. And getting to the gate, I said to the gate agent, I said, he just pooed, and we're going to get on the plane, and I know it's going to stink, and I don't want, can I have just 2 minutes? Give me 2 minutes to change his diaper. My wife will get on, and the nanny, and with all the sundry of stuff. Let me change the diaper, and then we can put it in the garbage can out here. And she's like, yeah, got it. Found like a table, right near the gate. There's no real convenient place, and I'm changing my son's diaper, and more people are coming. And like, will you sign this? And we sign that here, sign this, sign that. I remember getting pissed at me. Oh my God, let me change my child's diaper. Let me change his diaper. What, you want me to sign that with fecal matter? They're holding the plane for me, please. Then it was just a little bit zany.
It's crazy. Yeah, whenever I love meeting celebrities, but if I notice that they're in a certain situation, like with their kid or eating or changing poop, I would never approach them. So let me ask you a question though, because I know our time is limited, but I do want to get to one other thing. So your character goes from 1 episode to 41, but it becomes so popular, they want to spin it off into its own show. So they tried 3 attempts at making a spinoff for you, right? And first time, one of the main characters sadly passes away.
Ursula Bernardi, great guy.
The second one, you're in a juvenile thing, and they realize, all right, that's just not jiving. And then the third one, The Art of Being Nick, which I watched. So you were with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, pre-Seinfeld. She was actually really great. You were too. And it does really well. I mean, it scores well. And it was cute. It was cute. You move in with your sister, bond with her son, calls you Uncle Nick at the end. And you're like, yeah. What happened? I mean, what kept it from not getting picked up?
The first of many Hollywood lessons I was to be taught. We shot the show, went, I think, well. Julia was a sweetheart. Ray Baker, if you look at his resume, had a great resume. Christine Sutherland, who played my sister. They edit it. They test it. It tests really high. Everybody keeps saying, oh, they're going to pick it up. They're going to pick it up. Yeah, that hubbub. They start ordering, publicity photo sessions. And the next, there's nothing. The show's dead. What happened? Nobody tells me what happens, right? They air the show in the middle of the summer. They throw it on prime time. It gets a 47 share, which means that 47% of the available television audience is watching that show, which was still in that day and age pretty phenomenal, considering that Family Ties typically averaged around like a 42. Cosby was like a 44, right? So 47%. And I'm just confused. I don't know what the hell happened. And a couple of years later, me and Bruce Helford are out for lunch. And we go back to his office after. And Bruce Helford was the showrunner, the grand poobah on the show. Although it was Gary's company, Ubu Productions, Bruce was the man, the guy. Now, Bruce Helford had gone on to showrun Roseanne Barr Show, Drew Carey Show, Charlie Sheen Show, the Roseanne Barr Show again, probably some other shows that I can't think of at this moment. Bruce is very good at what he does. He's a very sweet guy, very intelligent, very funny, very empathetic. And he says to me at the end of lunch, yeah, it's a real shame Gary and Brandon got into that fight, isn't it? I'm like, what fight? He goes, that fight about our show. What fight? What show? Gary Goldberg's company, Ubu Productions, had signed a deal with NBC Productions to produce more sitcoms for NBC. All of Gary's shows at that time shot at the Paramount lot, where we shot. Part of the deal with NBC Productions was that they had to shoot at NBC Studios in Burbank. When you're an actor and you go to work, if you show up at this hour, they have to feed you within 6 hours or they get a heavy fine. It's called meal penalty. First time I was on Family Ties and we were shooting and they came up to me at a certain point and said, we're going to go into penalty. Will you waive your meal penalty? I'm like, what's meal penalty? It was explained to me, you got to feed everybody every 6 hours. And if you don't, the show gets fined every 15 minutes. And that fine goes up exponentially every 15 minutes and becomes very weighty. And it's to protect actors because there's a lot of schmuck producers that would just keep working everybody. Nobody gets a break. So they had gotten to that point on the show that Gary was doing the first show with NBC Productions at Burbank. The show hadn't been going well and it was finally working and they were finally happening. The stage manager, first AD, whatever the title was, said, time for meal. And Gary's like, no, we're doing good. Let's go. And they're like, no, we got a break. Now, if it was at Paramount with Gary's crew, everybody would say, yeah, I'll waive my penalty. And Gary's always made sure everybody got a little something extra in their envelope at the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the year, whatever it was. Up at NBC, this crew didn't know Gary from Adam. He was just another schmo. And they were like, I want to eat. I'm going to eat. And Brandon Tartikoff came in and said, Gary, just relax. We'll get it. And Gary's like, no, I want to go. And Brandon's like, relax. Gary's like, no, I want to go. And Brandon said, look, we'll get it after lunch. And Gary and Brandon got into an argument. And the argument went from hollering to shoving each other. And at one point, somebody said, I don't know if Gary said, well, you can't have my show. Or Brandon said, I don't want your show. And the show was The Art of Being Nick. And I got screwed. The show got screwed. That's life. Shit happens, You get back up on the horse, you dust yourself off, and you keep riding.
Well, at least you had Family Ties to go back to and continue playing Nick there.
Yes, that year, yes. And the next year, they were like, want to try another one? I'm like, we tried 3 times. It hasn't worked. And I didn't know. At that point, when they had asked at the end of the 7 years, do you want to do another? I was not told that Gary and Brandon got into a fight. And if I had known that when they were alive, because this was told to me after I would have addressed it in some way, their emotions, their petulance cost a lot for other folks, but that's life.
I appreciate you sharing all these stories with me, Scott. I know you got to go. But this is, it's been a ton of fun talking to you. Well, I know you've done a million other things. I apologize we didn't get to them, but maybe you'll come back.
I'd like to come back. Brother, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. When I come to Detroit, we've got to go to lunch and tell more tall tales, and I'd love to come back. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Scott Valentine. I know all of you loved him as Nick on Family Ties. So interesting hearing about the politics regarding the spinoff that almost happened. But as Scott said, and everyone take this with you, never give up. There's always greatness that lies ahead. It was a great story and a great message, and I hope you enjoyed it. And now, as we near the end of the episode, you know what time it is. That's right. It's time for another trending hashtag from the family of hashtags from Hashtag Roundup. You got the app. It's free. Why wouldn't you have it? Go to iTunes or Google Play Store, download the free Hashtag Roundup app, follow Hashtag Roundup on Twitter at Hashtag Roundup. Play along with us, and one day one of your tweets may show up on a future episode of Live from Detroit, The Jeff Dwoskin Show. This week's hashtag comes to us from Weekly Humorist, a weekly game on hashtag Roundup. This week's hashtag sizzling sitcoms. That's right, hot sitcoms. It's a mashup game where you take a sitcom and you add a little heat to it. And here are some amazing hashtag sizzling sitcoms. Benson Burner, Barney Griller, Third Walk from the Sun, Muggy Hauser MD, Happy Glaze, Parks and Perspiration. These are all some amazing sizzling sitcoms. They're hot. Everyone loves Ray-Ban. Welcome back, Hotter. Green Bakers, In the Heat of the Night, Grill Marks and Recreation, Bernie Hill. I'd watch any of these hashtag sizzling sitcoms, wouldn't you? It's Always Sunny Side Up in Philadelphia. And finally, King of the Grill. All right. Those were some awesome hashtag sizzling sitcoms. I love it. If you want to tweet your own, go and tweet hashtag sizzling sitcoms and tweet your own. In the meantime, all those tweeters will be retweeted at Jeff Dwoskin Show on Twitter and listed in the show notes. Show them some love, retweet them, like them, comment, tell them you heard their tweet. On Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show. Well, the hashtag game is over, so you know what that means. I know, it's so sad. We're at the end of episode 67. How did these episodes slip by so fast? I will never understand it. I want to thank my guest once again, Scott Valentine, for joining me. I want to thank all of you for joining me week after week. It means the world to me. I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Jeff Dwoskin Show with your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Now go repeat everything you heard and sound like a genius. Catch us online at thejeffdwoskinshow.com or follow us on Twitter at Jeff Dwoskin Show, and we'll see you next time.